Alright, now let's come over here and jump down here to look at the next rider, Kamen Rider Blade, who is one of my favorite riders and the first Kamen Rider series that I've actually watched all the way through beginning to end. So, kind of has a special place for me, and his Rouse Car ore has been added into the mod, though it has not been fully implemented. Blade does not have any crafting recipes yet, so still work in progress. Ignore that. And Blade is generally not complete, but he has all of his forms, so let's take a look at that. First off with the Blade's default Ace form, which you probably know if you know anything about the series. He has his Change Beetle card, which you will need to transform, and Henshin. Okay, that's weird. But Henshin, I think that's not supposed to happen, that you can do that, but whatever. Anyway, Blade has a very cool design. It's well captured in Minecraft and looks really cool. He doesn't have his horn, but that's not really physically possible to do in Minecraft anyway. So, no harm, no foul. He looks pretty cool. I like his belt, and I do like that the belt has that tiny little emblem emblazoned on it. I am amazed at how little details like that get into these suits. But anyway, he has his Blade Rouser, does 7 attack damage, has no extra effect, but generally looks pretty dang awesome. Now, as I said, his forms have been fully implemented, and I should note you absolutely do need the Rouse Absorber for this. If you do not have the Rouse Absorber in your inventory, you cannot transform. So if I grab Fusion Eagle here, and switch to F5 mode, shift right click everything, can't transform. Can't transform using Evolution Kakakis either. So you absolutely do need the Rouse Absorber in your inventory, and I don't know if it's supposed to multiply like that. I don't know if you're supposed to be able to stack those. It seems like a weird thing to be able to stack. But anyway, let's Henshin. Oh, one more thing though before I do. This might be and this is something I believe the mod creator is still working on. If I were to discard the the fusion card, I didn't mean to throw it away, but if I were to discard it, I can still transform into Jack and King form. That I believe is going to be fixed. Let's grab the Absorb Capricorn back here. And also, Absorb Capricorn, I do like that, even though you can't really see them, they do have the actual designs on them. But regardless, you can assume Ace form and then Jack form. Sorry, Ace form is the default form, Jack form is this form. And he does have the Rouse Absorber on his arm, which is a nice feature. He also has this nice gold tint to him, and he has those wings on the back. I'm pretty sure this form will probably be one of the ones that can... Okay, I don't think that's supposed to happen. But I think this is probably one of those that's going to be able to fly, because that was the big draw of this form. The one thing I should point out to the mod creator, as a suggestion, it's not incredibly obvious like it is with Garen, but when Blade assumes Jack form, he does get a little blade extension to his blade. Just saying that might be something nice to add. But regardless, let's look at the final form, Evolution King, and you become Blade King form. And his King Rouser has been implemented and is a big sword. And just generally, this form is one of my favorite Kamen Rider final forms because it just looks so regal and imposing. And while it's too small of a detail to be on the suit, you can kind of see it here just with the layout of the armor. He does, in the show, have all the cards that make up his suit on his form somewhere, and you can kind of make out the outlines of him here. And generally, King form just looks really, really awesome. I love this form, and if you want to change back, you simply need to grab Change Beetle, right-click it, and you're back to normal. Alright, now I should note, while they have not been yet implemented into the mod, Kamen Rider Lingle and Kamen Rider Garen's weapons have been added, the Lingle Rouser and the Garen Rouser. Lingle Rouser is the staff weapon, it always is, and the Lingle Rouser is a big handgun. And I believe there is a creeper right here, so let's see how much damage this does. 15 damage, just like all of the other ranged weapons, and you can bash people over the head with it. So, yeah, Kamen Rider Guard and Lingo aren't here yet, but their weapons are. Alright, now if we go behind here and look in this chest, we have a spare Sidlock seed to get back to the overworld. And come over here and right-click. And boom, we are back in the overworld in an underground cave, and if I right-click this button, we will now look at the update to the Kamen Rider Wizard portion of the mod, which adds Kamen Rider Beast, who is one of my favorite secondary riders. Now, like with all the other riders that have a secondary rider, you simply need the Wizard set and the Kamen Rider driver for that particular rider. So in this case, the Beast driver Henshin into Kamen Rider Beast, and ironically there's some wizard ore over there. And I like Kamen Rider Beast. He had a very simple but very interesting design, which just generally worked well for the character because he was supposed to be this prototype from very, very long ago. So I do feel that him having a simple design worked, and there's nothing wrong with this. I do like that you can kind of make out the little lion head on his right shoulder. Yeah, that's the right shoulder. Is that left? I got confused. But yeah, Kamen Rider Beast is in the mod, looks really cool, and he actually does have all of his mantle change rings. So let's grab them and chest them out. We have Buffa, Camilio, Falco, and Dolphy, and we also have his super mode, the Hyper style. Most of them are called mantles, but his Hyper is called a style. So anyway, right click and we get the Buffa mantle on his shoulder, which you can make out the little nose ring and the horns. It's not as detailed as a lot of things, but it still works and wraps along his arm nicely. You can still use this arm fully. I don't know why you'd think you wouldn't. But yeah, I imagine in the final version of the mod, it will probably give you a strength buff or something, because this was his strength-oriented form. Anyway, next up, Camilio, which looks really cool, has a gold aura. You can actually make out the big bug eyes on it, which I think is hilarious. Once more, nice, looks very good with the rest of the suit, and just generally glad it's here. I'm not sure what this one's actually going to do, because in the show, this was kind of his stealth-oriented form that could turn invisible. And, well, invisibility while wearing armor in Minecraft generally does not go that well. So, not really sure what this is going to be like in the final version. Anyway, next we have Falco, which has the beak. You can make out the eyes once again. And I believe this one will probably let him be able to fly, because that's what it did in the show. It was kind of his speed buffing form that let him be able to fly, and generally just was his agility form. So anyway, Dolphy, the last one, which I imagine will probably give you water breathing, because this was his underwater form. And it might also give you some regeneration buff or something, because it was also his healing form. But anyway, you can make out the subtle details on the mantle, which is pretty dang cool. Alright, last but not least, we have Kamen Rider Beast Hyper, his super mode, who has weird black pupils on his eyes. But generally, I do like this form. I like that he kind of has a face on his chest, kind of Gurren Lagann style, sort of. Not really, but it's kind of cool. And just generally, this form is pretty awesome. It's his super mode from the show and gave him access to Thermage Magnum, which sadly is not yet implemented, but probably will be in a future update. So yeah, that's Kamen Rider Beast Hyper. Not much to say, but he looks pretty dang cool. Alright, now to get out of this cave, we are going to need one of Wizard's new features, which are one of his spell rings. Now, this particular spell ring actually belonged to the White Wizard, and it is the Teleport Ring. But I imagine Wizard could use it too if he wanted to, and I should note you actually do need the belt to operate it, though you do not need to actually have the suit. You just need to have the belt. which is a nice feature because that's how it worked in the show. He could use the magic rings without transforming, so I'm going to show that off here. But basically with the teleport ring, you just need to shift right click to set it to a certain area, then you can right click at any point that it's charged up to teleport back there. So basically when you use this, it will go to 0 mana and have to recharge as a cooldown to prevent it from being too overpowered. But if I right click with this ring, bam, I'm back on the surface. So now we can look at the rest of his rings. And there's actually quite a few that have been added. Now, I will just go over the normal ones, then I'll go into the ones that change depending on which suit you're wearing at the time. And the ones that just work normally are Light, Sleep, Excite, and Bind. Now, basically what these do is, as long as you're wearing the belt, as I said, you can right-click them to produce an effect. For example, Light Ring gives you night vision for about 2 minutes. And it really takes about that long to recharge, so basically, if you have this ring and the belt, you will never need a night vision potion again, which is so convenient for dark caves and stuff. Alright, next up is the Sleep Ring, and the way the Sleep Ring works is if it is night and you right-click it, it instantly becomes day, so essentially it is like having a portable bed. Though I will note, out of all the rings, this one seems to take a good bit longer to recharge than Light Ring did, so keep that in mind, but it's not like you're going to be spamming that anyway, unless you're doing lucky blocks and keep getting the one that turns into night. So, yeah, that probably is not going to be something you're going to have to deal with a lot and need to spam, but it is nice that you will never need to have a bed again. Anyway, next we have the Excite Ring, which in the show basically made him Hulk out and be buff. In this, it gives you strength for 37 seconds. So, let's grab some Masquerade Dauphins and see exactly how strong of a strength buff this is. I'm pretty sure it is only a normal strength buff, but having an unlimited strength buff is a nice feature. So yeah, just a normal strength buff, not anything too amazing, but it is nice to have an infinite strength buff whenever you need it. Alright, now the last of the normal rings is the Bind Ring. Now, say I spawn in a Masquerade Dauphin, and I want to trap him. If I right-click where he is standing, he is suddenly in spider webs, which can be very useful. Now I can switch to a sight and pummel him to my heart's content. So yeah, very useful, even though it's basically just putting down spider webs. It's probably one of the more useful ones because you can use it to trap enemies, or if you're being chased by an enemy, you can use it to slow them up. Like, for example, the situation I am presently in, and that just made it worse, didn't it? Oh dear, I should not have done that. Alright, lesson learned. Make sure your mob spawning setup cannot create an infinite loop of mob spawning and trying to kill you. But anyway, one more ring before we get into the rings that are dependent on the forms, and that is the Explosion Ring, aka one of the funnest rings in the mod. And basically how the Explosion Ring works is you find something you want to blow up, like say this chicken, right click, and big boom. Now it doesn't do a ton of damage, but it can really mess up the terrain if you hit it just right. In fact, I've actually managed to trap an enemy mob in a pit by shooting it right at their feet. So, you had to get in the water where explosions don't work. Anyway, if I do this and then punch him, he's now in a hole. So you can kind of use it to trap enemies because it does make a pretty deep crater if you're on rock. It's not the most impressive weapon because it doesn't do a ton of damage, but it's still one of those things that's really fun to mess around with. And if you really want to cause a lot of mass destruction, just start blowing stuff up anywhere you want to. Though it does have a fairly lengthy reload, and I feel like it should do a little more damage, but it is just kind of a blast to deal with. And that is something I noticed, is if you do it just right, you can actually make an explosion inside of something, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, let's move on to the next ring. I'll never get tired of that. Alright, now we are on to the rings that actually require you to have a certain form equipped, which is the Defend Ring, the Special Ring, and the Thunder Ring, which I'm not sure if you actually need to be in a specific style for, but it's meant to go with Hurricane Dragon. So, to start with, let's just go straight with that and grab the dragon rings so I can show it off. And basically what this is going to do is, depending on which style ring I have equipped as my form, depends on what these rings do. So I can't use special in normal flame style, but should I go to Flame Dragon and right-click Special, I now have a dragon head sticking out of my chest, which was basically what it did. At the moment, this is just aesthetics, but it looks really cool, and I'm amazed that they managed to make a modeling thing do this. And generally, I just think that this is one of those cool things I'd never get tired of having equipped. But the cool part is, if I'm in Water Dragon style and use the special ring, I now have a tail, which is always pretty cool. And it doesn't have the blade like it does in the show, but that doesn't really matter. It's just kind of cool this exists. Alright, next up, let's switch to Land Dragon, because I want to show off Hurricane Dragon Laugh. And if I right-click with special rings, I get these big old claws, which I do imagine will probably come with a strength buff or something later on, but for now, just look really, really wicked, and I like them. And lastly, we have Hurricane Dragon, which, if I use the special ring, gets wings, which of course is pretty dang cool. And this is where the Thunder Ring is actually pretty fun. Now, if you right-click with the Thunder Ring, it will strike down, well, lightning. So, yeah, pretty useful, and you can actually get some pretty good distance with it. Let's find that chicken that was down here and I couldn't kill before. Yeah, there's a chicken. Let's strike it down with lightning. You do have to be a little careful. I mean, it's not like you're going to easily strike yourself, but it's not like infinite range, so keep that in mind. But if I strike from there, I can hit the chicken just fine. Right now, the next and most interesting of the rings that are depending on what style you are in is the Defend Ring. Now, as you can see, I am presently in Flame Dragon style, so if I right-click with the Defend Ring, it will produce a wall of lava, which kind of glitched out there, so that's interesting. Apparently that can happen. But let's go down here and try it again. If I use Defend and on a flat block, it will produce a too high wall of whatever it is for that particular form, in this case lava. And this is honestly one of the most dangerous things possible, because if you do it just wrong, well, it's lava. And while I imagine Flame Dragon will probably have fire resistance eventually, be careful not to do that near anything you care about, because, well, I've done it a few times, and as you can see, it kind of makes a mess of things. So be very careful when you're using the Flame Dragon, or Flame form of that. But anyway, if I turn to Water Dragon and use the Defend Ring, it changes to something a little less deadly. And that is just a wall of water, which I think would probably be one of the more useful ones, because if you're being chased by something, that will probably wash it away from you and buy you a little more time. So yeah, that's pretty much probably the most useful of them, I think. But anyway, let's use Hurricane Dragon next, because it was next chronologically. It produces a wall of leaves. So I did notice that since it's a 2x2 wall, it kind of is only good for momentary blocks. Perhaps, just a suggestion to the mod creator, maybe widen it a little bit so that it defends against a little more than just a few blocks. I can think of a few situations where this would be useful, but it'd probably be a bit more useful if it was, say, a 6-block wall instead of a 2-block one. Hello everyone, this is Future Godzilla Wolf. Past Godzilla Wolf kind of derped a little bit and forgot to show part of the mod. Forgive past Godzilla Wolf, he had a sore throat and was trying to get through everything before his voice gave out. But basically what he forgot to show was what the Defend Ring does when you are in Land Dragon, which is pretty simple. Creates a cobblestone wall in front of you, 2 by 2, just like everything else. Well, 2 by 1, sorry. And yeah, pretty simple. Though this one I find kind of useful because, well, you could just keep doing this and have an instant cobblestone wall around anything. It'll take a while because you gotta wait for this to recharge. But it is something you could do. I mean, it's actually one of the more useful mod and, well, free cobblestone. You could probably actually make a house with this thing if you were clever enough to do it. But anyway, that's all I forgot to show last time. I mean, past Godzilla Wolf forgot to show. I'm clearly future Godzilla Wolf. But anyway, back to past Godzilla Wolf. Alright, now when used with Infinity style, the Fen creates glass panes because, well, diamonds would be too OP. Though I did kind of find a mundane utility version for this, and that is if you position yourself like this to create it like that, and then say wanted to grab some wood, you could actually just use this to make easy, quick, effective windows for your house. Like, I find that so amusing that there's actually this really mundane thing you could use this for that is actually perfectly logical. Alright, now to cap off our look at the wizard portion of the mod, we are going to look at Wizard's new forms, which involve the Special Rush Ring, the Drago Timer, which is still obviously a work in progress, the Finish Strike Wizard Ring, and we're going to add this to the thing later on after I've shown off everything else. Basically, the Special Rush Wizard Ring, if I'm in Flame Dragon, will turn me into, I believe this is just called Dragon Rush Form or Special Rush Form. It's basically a red recolor of all the dragon parts equipped at once, and this was first seen in the Wizard and Forze crossover film, and was the first of these forms to actually debut. Anyway, next up, the Drago Timer, which just basically turns you into all dragon form. Which, very simple, not that complicated, and for some reason I just experienced huge amounts of lag. And sorry I'm experiencing lag, I'm not sure why. But anyway, all dragon, which was kind of his big mid-season upgrade form, and the thing that finished off the Phoenix Phantom. So, nice that it's in there, though the texture is not working yet. And I've kind of messed with the mountainside over there, haven't I? But anyway, for the last forms that we're showing off here, we need Infinity style, and then we use the Finish Strike Ring, which gives you Infinity Dragon or Infinity All Dragon. I should note that he does not have the fire on the chest, mainly because Infinity All Dragon's dragon forms for his rider kick on his foot, so he's kicking you with a dragon that's biting you at the same time he's kicking you. Yeah, fly through a donut. But that's not all, because if you were to grab the last ring in this chest, the Hope Wizard Ring, aka no, I'm not going to spoil it, that'd be spoilers, but this is a very important part of Kamen Rider Wizard's story. And what does this do? Well, it transforms Infinity Dragon into Infinity Dragon Gold, which appeared in the Wizard and Gaim crossover film. Which, yeah, it's just a gold repaint, but you can kind of tell that they were going for the idea this is just an upgraded version of his normal default form, and it succeeds at doing that. So, basically, that's all that has been added to Kamen Rider Wizard's portion of the mod, and to cap it off, I am going to quickly switch into survival and attempt something that could possibly get me killed. So, set game mode to game mode 0, and I'm going to actually try to put defend to its intended purpose while an Infinity Dragon here. So, run past that, it spawns in mobs as you can assume. Run in here, they're chasing me, and right click here to form a wall, and nah, you can't get me. And that's how you actually use it in survival, which actually does work quite well. He can't get to me, and I've just got glass here, and those guys are going to keep spawning infinitely out there, aren't they? Alright, now that I've made it a running gag that every time I try to spawn in mobs, that way I end up in an infinite loop of mobs spawning over and over again, let's move on to Kamen Rider Drive's update and see what has been added, which should be obvious by what I tried to recreate in Minecraft and probably didn't do too well. This update adds in Kamen Rider Drive's other shift cars, though I don't believe all of them, but it adds in more of them, and it also adds in Kamen Rider Mach and his signal bikes. So, let's get started, and the first thing I'm going to show off is the new form bikes. No, not bikes, shift cars, which are Kamen Rider Drive type Technic, Kamen Rider Drive type High Speed, and Kamen Rider Drive type Fruit, but also Kamen Rider Proto Drive. So, anyway, let's start with type Technic. Oops, embarrassing. Henshin. Let's start with type Technic, who does not have any buffs at present, but looks quite interesting, and does have a tire sticking through his chest in a way that would likely kill a normal man. But he does lack the things on his head, but that's kind of forgivable given this is Minecraft. Has the caution stripes down here the size of his legs, and generally just looks pretty cool. Does everything he needs to do. Next up, Kamen Rider Drive Shift Fruits, which was from the Kamen Rider Drive and Gaim film. And yeah, looks kind of silly, but kind of awesome at the same time. That is how Type Fruit rolls. In this form, he could use the Muso Saber and Daidaimaru, which is nice to know. And lastly, Kamen Rider Drive Type High Speed, which is basically just a repaint of Kamen Rider Drive Type Speed. This was from the Teleddy-kun. I want to think the Hyper Battle DVD or just one of the other DVDs they did. And yeah, not much to it, though it does also have Kamen Rider Drive Mega Max Flare Tire Kokon car, so let's look at that. Basically, once more repaint of Max Flare, but that's what it was in the show. To be honest, to a degree, I like this form better than Drive's normal form, even if it was kind of a joke form in the show. If you've seen the special, you know what I mean. But nice to have it. Alright, last of the forms now accessible through the Drive driver is Kamen Rider Proto Drive. Now, I should note he is still able to use the tires. No problem there. He just does not have a tire himself. So it's basically the whole prototype design, unfinished, but overall looks pretty cool. Not sure if we'll ever see this form ever used again in the show, but nice that it's in the mod. Alright, now the next shift cars that we're going to look at are Kamen Rider Drive Type Wilds shift car set, which is Rumble Dump, which has caused many people to chuckle, Mad Doctor, and Hooking Wrecker. And these are basically the ones that were specifically for Type Wild, even though technically all of his forms could use them, except Rumble Dump, who went out of control if Type Speed tried to use it. And right-click, and you get the Rumble Dump tire, which his weapon has not been added, but it's a drill. I think it'd be cool if when this weapon is added, it doubles as a pickaxe, because there's not a lot of pickaxe added into the mod, so it might be a cool feature to make the drill double as that. Anyway, next up, Mad Doctor, who has one of my favorite designs of any of the shift cars. And I imagine this one's probably going to have some sort of regeneration thing, or be able to cure a poison afflictment for a certain amount of damage. It depends on how they want to do it, but in the show, basically this could heal injuries and cure nearly any poison, though if you used it for that purpose, it hurt very, very badly. Yeah, anyway, nice. He first used this in Type Speed, but is technically meant for Type Wild. And now lastly, Hooking Wrecker, who once more looks pretty awesome. You can see the hook there. Not sure how this is going to be implemented, but it'd be nice if you could use it like you kind of can use fishing rods on certain servers to kind of hook people and pull them to you. Get over here style. That'd be a pretty cool feature, but at the moment it just looks pretty. Alright, next up are Type Technics set of shift cars, which are Road Winter, Fire Braver, and Rolling Gravity. And first off, shift into Type Technic and Road Winter, which looks pretty cool, and I kind of like the design of it, even though you can't entirely see it. So let's shift back to Type Wild to just show off how it looks in a more proper stance. Yeah, not too complex of a tire, but it's a nice blue color. And then Fire Braver, which once more is Type Technics, which gives him a third arm, which basically is a ladder arm that extends out of his chest, which is just kind of awesome. And I think I've made the suggestion on the YouTube video. I do think it would be cool if Technic could emit a redstone signal or something. But with Fire Braver, I honestly don't know exactly how you'd implement having a third arm. I mean, I'm not entirely sure how that would work, but I think there are probably a few things you could do. Anyway, last but not least, Rolling Gravity, which was basically the shift car that would allow him to control gravity and is kind of the steamroller of the group. Not too much complicated about it. Looks pretty cool. I like it. And once more, it is Type Technics shift car. I'm not entirely sure why you think it would be Type Wild, but that's what the show says about it. Alright, now on to the last part of this update, which is good because my throat is becoming very, very sore and I'm running out of ability to talk right now. So, the final part of the mod is Kamen Rider Mach, who has all of his signal bikes. Let's actually get them in order here so I can actively remember what they do. And yeah, he basically has all of his signal bikes. I should note that Drive cannot use these because basically and only in dead heat can Drive and Mach use each other's powers. And sorry, like I said, I'm out of it. I'm very tired right now and my throat is giving out on me. So let's just get this over with. Switch out the Mach driver and your Kamen Rider Mach, who I generally do like the design of. He looks pretty cool, has that very Mach 5 design we know and love, and has the asymmetrical tire on one shoulder thing. And we do have his signal bikes. This is his default form. We can turn to Magaru, which I believe can this one is the form that can cause his bullets to curve to hit a specific target. Then we have Kaksane, I'm having trouble pronouncing these without a sore throat, which basically causes a scatter shot effect when it is fired. I believe they all home in on the target. And Kiken, I believe is how you actually pronounce it, which basically is the bullet bill gun, where it shoots out a small shark-shaped bullet that grows huge and tries to eat someone. I'm not joking. And lastly, Tomare, which is the stop sign S form and has paralyzing shots. So at the moment he has no buffs or anything, but it is nice to have his signal set. Anyway, that is all there is to show with this mod update. It adds a lot more into the game, and of course, being me, I am not going to just end this on no note. I am going to end it with a bang by doing what anyone can do with the power to create explosions. And that is, well, end with a gigantic one. So let's use explosion over here on this little tiny piece of TNT. And I'd never get tired of that. Anyway, that has been this update on the Kamen Rider Craft 2 mod. I am going to go treat my throat, which is extremely sore right now. See you guys next time. Bye! I still don't have a catchphrase.